Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to Byte Software Services Windows Server 2012 Empowering Hybrid Clouds webinar. My name is Zina Jeffrey. I'm Divisional Sales Director at Byte Software Services, and today I have Greg Hartwell with me, who's Commercial Account Director at one of our leading SI visual. And today we are going to go through. Okay, before we start the webinar, you are all currently muted. You do have the ability to submit questions at any time, and you have a question box on the right-hand side of your screen. We are hoping that the webinar today should take 45 to 50 minutes with a 10-minute Q&A session at the end, so please feel free to keep those questions coming through. We are also recording the webinar, and this will be made available to you. Also, at the end of the webinar, you will have an electronic critique sheet, which we hope that you take a couple of minutes just to complete for us to give us some valuable feedback. Okay, so as per the invite that has been sent out to you, the topics that we're going to cover today are, Craig is going to take you through what's new within Windows Server 2012 and how you can leverage Microsoft System Center 2012 on top of the Windows Server stack. He's also going to go through how Windows Server compares with the competition out there. And finally, I'm going to go through the licensing changes to Windows Server 2012, talk you through a current promotion that Microsoft has for Windows Server, and also the enrollment for core infrastructure. And finally, we'll just go through some key takeaway points that we'd like to leave with you. So if I could just pass over to Craig.
Thank you, Zina, and good afternoon, everybody. As Zina had discussed, my name is Craig Hartwell. I'm from one of the leading System Center partners in the UK, Visual, gold certified Microsoft partner that delivers, I guess, lots of System Center infrastructure related projects to the Bytes community. So I've been invited here today to talk a little bit about Windows Server System Center 2012. I think it's fair to say that this could be a 3-day event. However, we're trying to condense this down to a 30-minute slide deck. So obviously there may be lots of questions today. I'm happy to take them as we go, but maybe we'll have to come back to some of them as well. But I think before we start, it's worth noting, I guess, a little bit of the journey where Microsoft has been on in the last few years. Steve Ballmer recently came out in the press to talk about Microsoft redefining itself as a devices and services company. Now this is it's quite a bold statement by Microsoft, and really starts to see the fruits of their labour. In 3 or 4 years ago, they decided to turn the entire ship around and go all in with the cloud. I'm sure there's a lot of you that recall Ballmer kind of saying we're all in. Well, it was from that point that Windows Server 2012 was being manifested as the next generation of server technology, and really is I guess the result of their approach towards how do we deliver better services to what is a more commoditized IT environment. I'm sure a lot of you out there right now are not just using PCs. There's lots of thin devices, lots of mobile devices, and Microsoft understand this, and with its introduction of Surface and various technologies like that, it really does start to kind of show that they are embracing this brave new world. So what are they doing? How are they addressing the way in which people are trying to get new applications? How they're managing device proliferation? How the massive data explosion that's happening around the world is being structured and managed in a clean way? And obviously, cloud computing is such a prolific kind of topic at the moment. How is it being embraced in a structured way? So one of the key things is, like with the private clouds, you get many of the benefits of public cloud computing, including self-service, scalability, and elasticity, with additional control and customization available from dedicated resources. Microsoft customers can build a private cloud today with Windows Server and Microsoft Hyper-V, leveraging System Center. But there are many questions on how to get there. It is a journey. Visual and Bytes have kind of teamed together in helping customers to kind of make the first few steps, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on today. As with all changes in the infrastructure, there has to be benefits. How do I increase the efficiency in my data center and at the same time lower costs of operational expense? Windows Server has made some significant changes to its core infrastructure that help with some of those cost efficiencies. How do you deliver next generation applications? I think it's fair to say that, you know, with the impending release of Windows 8, it's clear that the way in which infrastructures are going to deliver applications in the future are going to be distinctly different with an App Store style approach. And so, how do you as a developer, or indeed kind of IT provider to your own company, manage that and kind of get that out to your new environment? And how do you embrace modern work styles? As I mentioned, Windows 8 and the Windows RT devices are due for release in the next couple of days. This is Microsoft's acknowledgement of the devices and services organization that it's turned itself into. But how do you, as an IT professional, make sure that the infrastructure that you manage and look after for your business is safe and secure, but can actually benefit from a lot of those features? So Microsoft has a pretty unique, I guess, offering in the marketplace today, in that it has the only platform in the market that can provide an on-premise, an off-premise, and services that you can acquire from third-party service providers, that has a constant platform, consistent tooling around management, around development, around identity, and indeed virtualization. All of this is encapsulated with a common set of management tools, and I think it's important that we kind of pull that out today as we talk about you know, moving towards kind of embracing Server 2012 and some of the benefits that can bring. Specifically, if we think on things like, you know, a common identity, to be able to take your existing Active Directory environment and then bridge that into the new world of both on-site and off-site, I think there is no other company on the planet that can actually help you do that than Microsoft. So it's these tool sets that Microsoft really want you to make the most leverage from. So we hear a lot about cloud. I think it's obviously a very well-used terminology, but if we generalize cloud to almost become the metaphor for delivering services to your business, I think ultimately it's about how do you deliver more economically with less resource, and really how does Server 2012 help you do that? So first of all, it takes you beyond virtualization. I think it's fair to say that virtualization has enjoyed 5 years of kind of really expansive growth around taking physical to virtual, but Server 2012 really moves beyond that now in terms of offering a dynamic multi-tenant infrastructure that goes way beyond virtualization. It's a complete platform for building a private cloud. It delivers the power of many servers with the simplicity of one. Windows Server 2012 offers you an excellent economic value by integrating highly available and easy to manage multiple server platforms. It opens the door to every app on any cloud. Server 2012 is a broad, scalable and elastic web application platform that gives you the flexibility to build and deploy applications on premises, in the cloud, and a hybrid environment through a consistent set of tools and frameworks. And some of that we'll see today in some of the slides that we've got. And finally, it enables the modern work style. IT effectively want to be able to give users the flexibility and access to data anywhere and any time, but they need to maintain the security and control and compliance. So with Server 2012, there's a lot of, there's a very changing environment within the IT world, and to address some of these challenges, there's been some distinct changes in the way in which it is built. So as I started at the beginning, we could spend days talking about, you know, the technical features of Windows Server 2012, and I think it's fair to say we would love to do that with you. But in the interest of time today, just touching on some of the key areas that we see as being top features of Server 2012, and I'll spend a couple of minutes on this slide, really just to try and get a bit of a feel for I guess the key benefits. So it has enterprise class scale and performance. It greatly expands support for host processors and memory. I've got some information on how it stacks up against the competition in a moment, but new features include support for as many as 64 virtual processors and a terabyte of memory for Hyper-V guests. It has a new virtual hard disk format with larger disk capacity, which is the VHDX format, with up to 64 terabytes and additional resiliency as well. These features help ensure that the virtualization infrastructure can support the configuration of very large, high-performance virtual machines to support workloads that might need to scale up significantly as you grow your businesses. Significant improvements have been made with Hyper-V now supporting increased cluster sizes, a significantly higher number of active virtual machines per host, and additionally more advanced performance features such as non-uniform memory access. This capability helps ensure that customers can experience the highest levels of scalability, performance, and density for their business-critical workloads. Going to the next box, shared nothing live migration. It provides the ability to migrate a virtual machine from one Hyper-V host to another Hyper-V host that isn't part of the same cluster, shares no storage, and has only a gigabit Ethernet connection to the first virtual machine. And to do all that with effectively minimal downtime is what shared nothing live migration is all about. It looks very much like a combination of server message block SMB live migration and storage live migration, where the mirroring of writes to both the source and destination storage is maintained while performing a live migration of the memory and state before finally switching that host that's running the virtual machine. With shared nothing live migration, we can move virtual machines between Windows Server 2012 Hyper-V hosts even when they have nothing in common but a shared Ethernet cable. Going on to the third area, Hyper-V network virtualization. Isolating virtual machines from different departments or customers can be a challenge on a shared network, and something we all have to consider doing when we have business critical information sitting on the same pieces of hardware but with very different restriction levels on them. When these departments or customers need to isolate entire networks of virtual machines, the challenge becomes even greater. Traditionally, virtual local area networks, or VLANs, are used to isolate the networks, but VLANs become very complex to manage on a large scale. Hyper-V network virtualization helps to solve this problem. With this feature, you can isolate network traffic from different business units or customers on a shared infrastructure without using VLANs. Hyper-V network virtualization also lets you move virtual machines as needed within your virtual infrastructure while preserving their virtual network assignments. Finally, you can use Hyper-V network virtualization to transparently integrate these private networks into a pre-existing infrastructure on another site. Low-cost, highly available file-based storage. For anybody that wants to save some money out there and is thinking about buying some SAN technology now, I implore you to listen up, because this is probably one of the most cost-effective aspects of Windows Server 2012. It effectively introduces file services feature that let you store server application data on file shares to take advantage of SMB 3.0 protocol, and also takes advantage of low-cost commodity hardware. A variety of performance enhancements and availability improvements come together to file share storage a great low-cost choice for critical workloads such as Hyper-V and SQL Server. And I think it's fair to say, before Server 2012, Microsoft never really recommended SQL Server being a Hyper-V workload, but with the kind of performance and scalability improvements that's been made, they absolutely see this as a target workload for it. Back to the storage element, file services can endure a variety of failures transparently, resulting in a minimal interruption to service that depend on that storage. File server features support easier creation and management of an optimally available data storage foundation for critical applications such as SQL and indeed Hyper-V. An array of new SMB protocol enhancements and capabilities such as transparent failover, SMB Direct and SMB multi-channel give you benefits and performance that are similar to much more expensive storage area networks. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this paragraph, the kind of performance increases that we're seeing and the capabilities means that when you're on the borderline of having to rely on SAN technology for storage hardware level support, Server 2012 has a lot of those features built into the actual server. So things like deduplication at source and lots of other features are all native out of the box. So, like I say, if anybody's looking at expanding their SAN environment, please do look at Server 2012. Hyper-V Replica. Provides a storage agnostic and workload agnostic solution that replicates efficiently, periodically and asynchronously over IP-based networks, typically to a remote site. It also allows an administrator to more easily test the replica virtual machine with minimal disruption to the ongoing replication. If a disaster occurs at the primary site, administrators can quickly restore their business operations by bringing up the replicated virtual machine at the replica site. Hyper-V Replica provides a virtual machine level, affordable, reliable and manageable replication solution that is tightly integrated with Hyper-V Manager and the failover clustering features in Windows Server 2012. Windows PowerShell 3.0. Now, I don't know the split of technical people versus commercial people versus salespeople, but PowerShell always seemed like a command line thing that sounded a little bit difficult. However, having seen this and as a salesperson starting to now understand the benefits of what PowerShell can bring, it kind of brought it home for me. But ultimately, this provides a comprehensive management platform for all aspects of the data center, servers, network, and storage. In this newest version of the Windows PowerShell, sessions on remote servers are resilient and can withstand various types of interruptions. In addition, learning Windows PowerShell is now a hell of a lot easier with improved command-led discovery and things like drop-down boxes, almost like when you're typing into the Bing search engine, it will give you ideas on code that you should be running for this particular PowerShell. So it makes it very simple, very easy to create complex requirements through PowerShell. Hybrid applications. So halfway through, guys, hybrid applications, most organizations today are using or planning on using a combination of on-premise and off-premise for IT resources and tools, resulting in hybrid IT, something that Microsoft has spoken about for some time. With Server 2012, your organization can protect its existing investment in on-premises applications as you begin to move to the cloud, and you can take a unified approach to managing your applications. The following capabilities in Server 2012 help provide the flexibility to build and deploy hybrid applications. So programming symmetry provides the ability to use the same development model across Server 2012 and Windows Azure. For those that haven't looked at Azure of late, or indeed for people that haven't looked at it and got an enterprise agreement, you've got access to go and see the new Azure platform. I implore you to do this because they've recently changed the interface and indeed the capabilities. And you know, from a symmetry point of view and being able to write on site and deploy off site, there's some fantastic new benefits in that. So I implore you to look at that. Cross-premises connectivity for hybrid scenarios enables enterprises to connect to private subnetworks in a hosted cloud environment. It allows VPN site-to-site functionality and remote access. And last but not least, virtual machine portability offers the ability to provision, manage, and move virtual machine images from an on-site Windows Server 2012 box to that Windows Azure platform. Traditionally, Azure has been a platform as a service play. However, with the new introduction that I just mentioned, they have this infrastructure as a service capability that in essence allows you to have a virtual machine that you can squirt into Azure and just use as a regular server. So, multi-tenant high-density websites. Windows Server 2012 offers new and enhanced features that provide extensive support for web applications and cloud-based strategies. It helps to improve website density so that enterprises and hosting providers can increase the number of sites supported with the same amount of computer hardware. Simplified feature-rich VDI. Not sure how many people out there are using VDI today, and it seems to be one of those technologies that everybody talks about but seems to be difficult to deploy. However, having installed Server 2012 and realized that the 6 pages of setting up a VDI solution is now down to something like 6 clicks, it really is a hell of a lot easier to do this with Server 2012. It has things like simple wizard-based setup of procedures for remote desktop services, unified management console for virtual desktops, simplified creation of assignment and patch management. VDI and Windows Server 2012 remote desktop services deliver effectively rich experience by leveraging the remote FX services that have been in Microsoft's VDI technology for some time, but it really starts to accelerate the graphics, the WAN, and indeed has support for multi-touch. So when you have VDI implementations on touch-enabled devices, there is the ability to actually interact with your host service through that multi-touch environment. So again, anybody that's looking at VDI as a solution, Server 2012 really does make some strides in that area. Dynamic access control. Now, this is one that, albeit last on the slide, has got a lot of our customers thinking about how they manage their data from creation to grave, effectively. And what this is, it gives the IT professional new ways to control access to file data and monitor compliance with regulations. Think of it as aspects of rights management services, but from the files up. And so if from a very simplistic view, once you tag a file with a certain label, you can then refer to the AD credentials of a particular user as to whether they can have access to that file or not. How many times has somebody tried to open a file that they didn't have access to that folder, but absolutely were unable to see the content, and the warning that popped up from the Windows environment was go and speak to your network administrator. Chances are your network administrator is either on a coffee break or is on doesn't have any concept as to whether you're allowed to that information or not. Dynamic access control really does start to do away with the manual elements of who should get access to what files, and really kind of starts to play around the security and compliance features of mobile devices and things like that. So as people change roles and as people change kind of access credentials between components within their business, it follows them in a structured technical way. So there's some of the features of Server 2012. We could talk all day, and my technical people could blow most people's socks off, but in the interest of I guess moving forward and understanding how, we start to then now put the wrapper around I guess managing this environment. We have this concept now of an application owner and the DC admin. In effect, there needs to be a service level agreement between that application owner, call it a user, and that service provider within the business. So what a lot of the cloud tenants actually provide is this aspect of self-service, to take away the requirements on IT to keep provisioning users with services and resources. By pushing that self-service element out to the end user, it means that you can free up IT resource to go and do more interesting things like creating new services. Once the service model is created and you can actually distribute that around your business, there needs to be an aspect of service delivery and automation. And Microsoft has spent a significant amount of time and money in taking what is those core deliverables and wrapping them into some kind of orchestration components. So once the framework is set up to go and configure and deploy these solutions, the DC administrator will work out whether this should be an on-site, an off-site, or indeed some kind of form of service provisioned environment. And the way in which they'll do that is by kind of looking at the business requirements, but then ultimately need to monitor and operate it. This opens the door for all of the components within the System Center suite. Released earlier this year, System Center 2012 really comprises of around 7 different products that have come together, some new, some that have kind of grown from their own stables, but they're all used in this kind of evolution of kind of moving from IT providing all the service to a self-serviced environment that is automated, structured, and kind of gives a clean way of delivering infrastructure management. This is the System Center approach. This abstracts away from just providing people with virtual machines, and I think it's an important step from Microsoft in terms of just helping people embrace that. So again, we're using the cloud word here, but bear with me on it because, like I say, I'm rather than redraw all of these slides and say private data center solutions, it's a good way of just encapsulating where we've been and where we're going from a service delivery perspective. It's fair to say that the vast majority of people out there on the call will have some form of traditional on-site hardware-based servers and a lot of virtualized servers, and that's what we see as a distribution model today of server environments. However, both Gartner and the rest of the industry realize that not only is private cloud and public cloud going to be a big part of that, you're not going to throw away your legacy investments around hardware, software, skills, and all the other good stuff that comes around delivering services within your business. So you need a way of managing all of that in a clear and concise way and kind of moving along that journey. Microsoft very, very well positioned around the System Center suite to actually give you that. And if you look at technologies such as App Controller, which is one of those components in the System Center suite, what that enables you to do is start to group together servers, network, storage, and deliver services to your businesses, not just individual virtual instances. So as you start to build up these services, they could be traditional or virtualized, they could be on-site, they could be off-site, or they could be public or private cloud embraced. Fact of the matter is, you want to deliver an SLA to your business, and you need a place where you can manage and monitor all of that. With the System Center suite, it effectively doesn't really care where your resources reside, whether they be on-site or off-site. And as you start to move and embrace private and hosted cloud services, you want to make sure that model doesn't change. Here we can see within a single console of the App Controller environment that effectively this is exactly what this kind of gives you from a productivity point of view. So again, negating the need for going and creating new services on your own private cloud when you can quite easily go and buy them in from an Azure or indeed another service platform like AWS. So, talking an awful lot here, but in essence what Microsoft are trying to achieve here is giving you a productive infrastructure that delivers flexible and cost-effective solutions. It's got out-the-box heterogeneous support, so as we look at Server 2012 and System Center 2012, it is the only management framework around virtualization that lets you embrace multiple hypervisors. So you can take your existing investment in Server 2008, Server 2003 even, but more importantly VMware and those ESX environments, and roll that into an overall management strategy with System Center. Technologies such as VMM, Virtual Machine Manager, enables you to bring in those hypervisors without having to kind of redesign them from scratch. Process automation comes about with technologies such as Orchestrator that again enables you to kind of work with existing business processes and plugging an overarching layer of management that helps you orchestrate those components between different silos of business processes. And it also gives you that self-service capability. I'll touch on a customer reference story in just a moment that really starts to bring that home. In terms of predictable applications, ultimately this is about monitoring the service level, and for anybody that's looked at Operations Manager of late, you realize that it's a very, very powerful tool that not just manages servers but that service, and it's from the right from the eyes of the user right the way back to the hardware within the estate. And this ultimately builds your cloud. This is going to be on-site, it's going to be off-site. It's going to be your service that you deliver to your internal and your external customers. And ultimately you need flexibility with delegation, application self-service across your hybrid clouds, and that's to the physical devices that you're going to put out in your field, things like the Microsoft Surfaces, the iPads, the smartphones of this world. Ultimately you need to be able to provide that service. So, it's fair to say that Microsoft has been having, quite a visible fight in the IT industry with VMware, and to be honest, until Server 2012, it was always lacking in the competition. However, it's fair to say now that Microsoft can stand toe-to-toe with VMware in just about all of the technical categories that VMware has kind of won the battles in the past. This particular document is a snapshot of an output from actually a business case proposal that I'll walk you through towards the end of this this webinar, because what it enables you to do is plug in your estate and how it looks, and it gives you some very tangible output as to what the performance capabilities are of Hyper-V versus VMware. Like I say, this is not a rip and replace of the VMware world. We all understand that people have made those investments, but it's an acknowledgement that Microsoft has well and truly caught up in terms of the the scalability, the flexibility, and the growth capabilities of Hyper-V. And no, I guess no VMware compete message would be kind of complete without a bit of a cost model. This is something that's been knocking around in the Microsoft world for some time, and Zena will talk around this in a little while, but it talks to the scalable licensing model that you see with Microsoft in terms of the data center licensing model versus VMware, where you will see a per instance cost. So as you grow your virtual estate, your virtualization costs will grow. As Zena will demonstrate a little bit later on with the data center licensing model, that's not the case with Windows Server and System Center 2012 when you adopt the right licensing model. So I spoke at the very beginning around the journey to hybrid clouds with Visual and Bytes, and we as an organization are a consulting firm that has a very structured approach to the way in which it analyzes your requirements and then starts to I guess formulate a plan of attack and help you determine whether an off-site, an on-site environment is right for your business. Each of our engagements go through 6 distinct phases in terms of evaluate, plan, build, test, deploy and operate, and we will work with you together with your Bytes representative to identify where you are on these journeys. From a technical consulting perspective, we have at the very outset from evaluate these architecture design sessions that are designed to go into a hell of a lot more detail than we're going to go into today around the capabilities and ultimately the requirements. And it's one day on site with your team just to understand how we can help you. From there, most opportunities tend to kind of take a different angle, and some can go into a full-blown plan, build and test environment. Some can simply just have some best practices guidance around how to actually embrace some of the technology. But as a lot of us know, it's not just around technology. We need to align the business drivers with the capabilities in-house, and so we have a series of engagements that can also look at the non-technical aspects, so vision and scope engagements, project planning, all Prince 2 certified around engagement and the management thereof. We've been working really well with Bytes in the last couple of years, and I've come up with a way of getting to know joint customers by leveraging the planning service vouchers that come along with your enterprise agreements. I can't see a show of hands, but I'm pretty sure that there'll be a lot of people on the call that have deployment planning services available to them, and quite often they kind of don't get used in the best way. So we tend to be very creative in the way in which we can identify requirements within your business and then ultimately put an architecture design session together to help you build the business case. Talking of business cases, Microsoft recognizes that it's got a strong fight on its hands, and fighting with VMware is always a big challenge. So it's put a war chest together of private cloud funding. Now, if anybody's into free money, I implore you to listen up because the opportunity is such. Should you want to do a proof of concept with Microsoft-based technologies, that's Windows Server 2012 or indeed 2008, with some form of system center, be it SCOM or SCVMM, the Virtual Machine Manager, then there are funds available to you, to employers, to come in and actually set this up for you. There are capabilities such as the Azure kickers as well. So for a proof of concept, you can get anywhere up to $12,500 worth of free consulting to actually stand up a private cloud environment. For customers that have already got some form of system center, then there's a step-up approach as well. So for people that want to look at Orchestrator and Service Manager, again, there's funding on the table available for proof of concepts. You'll notice in the deployment fund area, these are production environments that are going to embrace, broad scale deployments of this technology, and the numbers are significant. So $25,000 for a 16 host environment. So we at the moment have got about 15 engagements with customers, and Microsoft aren't balking at the kind of requests that we're putting in. So we'd like to identify with yourselves who would like to kind of actually take the next steps and go on a private cloud proof of concept, and we can do that together with Bytes. So coming to the end of my slot, you would probably be glad to hear, but I'm just want to talk through a customer example of I guess where we've actually taken this from a business challenge perspective right the way through to a technology deployment. So Skipton Building Society, 8,000 seats, lots of business units. Their development environment was taking up to 3 weeks to build a server, and then take multiple days or indeed weeks again to layer up the BizTalk processes and tools required for the development environment. For a financial house, that was unacceptable from a time to deploy new services. So they had some distinct challenges around technology, despite being a VMware customer. So the business requirements were speed to provision with light user touch, i.e. self-service portals for kind of getting that infrastructure up and running, and logical segregation of resources. Again, this is where Server 2012 really came into its own. Working together with Microsoft, we had some funding, as per the previous slide, around the MPCA, so it was a low-risk engagement for them, and they also had an ECI license, which Zena will talk about in a moment, so there was no incremental licenses to set up this private cloud for them. It also enabled them to standardize on System Center 2012. Coming to the results, they moved from a lead time of at least 4 weeks to get a development environment up and running to 15 minutes. Now that's not to create a VM instance, that was a 3-tiered development environment that had server, storage, network all provisioned to a template using App Controller. 2 days of effort from the IT team was reduced to 0 because everything was pushed out to the user with a self-service portal. And although this was originally designed for a development environment, ultimately there is now a huge demand for it across IT because they realise there are no incremental costs in growing this platform. They've already paid for the ECI on the servers. The only thing that's stopping them deploy more is Moore's Law. So hopefully that gives a flavour that this stuff is real. It's out there. There is a public case study around Skipton. So please go and have a look on the Microsoft Case Studies website, and it will kind of hopefully bring to life some of the stuff we've been talking about today. I'm going to hand back to Zena, and who's going to look at some of these server editions and then wrap up in just a moment.
Thank you, Craig. Yes, so just going to spend a few slides now going through some of the licensing options. Obviously, so you've had a flavour from Craig on the technology piece. So from a how-to-buy perspective, we obviously need to ensure that you're comfortable with some of the changes that have happened in the marketplace. So this slide hopefully should have no surprises. Traditionally, Windows Server has been available in a number of flavours. If you look really at the top sort of main editions there, which really sort of cope for probably about 99% of the sales that we have through Bytes, and probably represents familiar editions that are out there in the marketplace. You have the ability to buy things like Data Center Edition, Enterprise and Standard Edition. These editions have now changed. In September, as Craig alluded to, Microsoft released Windows 2012. And what's happened is Microsoft, in essence, has reduced the number of editions that are available. So we still have our Data Center Edition and a Standard Edition, and then really for small business there's an Essentials and Foundations Edition. Traditionally, going to say the main editions, you were able to buy these. Enterprise and Standard were available in server mode, and you needed to buy your additional client access licenses or CALs. And Data Center, sort of a newer version or addition into the fold, has been available as a processor license, again with the requirement to buy additional client access licenses for the data center. Core change really is that there is no server CAL model available anymore. The new editions as you buy them are data center or standard, and they come as processor with CAL. Important to note, if you upgrade one of your servers or a server in your environment, you need to ensure that that server and the required CALs or client access licenses are at the 2012 edition. Okay, so actually with Windows Server, the changes are actually quite simple, which is quite unique sometimes with some of the Microsoft licensing additions and flavors, with the reductions of suites, etc. So the key thing to remember is that there are 2 editions available now. both a processor, and each license covers you for 2 processors. From a functionality perspective, there is actually no difference in the functionality with either license that you buy, but the key thing, and Craig alluded to some of the changes and how you can scale with Windows Server, is Standard Edition really is for customers who have got a low virtual model and just need pretty much standalone Standard Edition servers, whereas the data center, as the name suggests, is designed for the data center when you are actually running a heavy virtual environment, and the number of virtual instances you can have per edition is unlimited. If, as a customer, you have invested in software assurance on your existing Windows Server estate, there is a transition path available to you. So if you currently have, I'll actually just open these up for you so you can see. Let's just get those clicked through. So if we just really go to the core ones at the top there, so Data Center Edition, as has been available, has been a 1 processor license. So if you have historic data center licenses that have licensed you for 1 processor in your data center, the conversion is for every 2 licenses that you own, you now are entitled to 1 Data Center 2012 edition, which is the equivalency of the new data center license has 2 procs, so it's the same. With customers that have Enterprise Edition, this now converts across to 2 Standard Editions. Standard is 1 for 1, and then the conversions of the sort of smaller SBS and Essentials models there are stated below. One thing to be aware of on the September price list, for most of the common volume agreements that are out in the marketplace, such as Enterprise, Select, Open Value, Government Agreements, etc., Microsoft released a promotion. So for customers who have got existing Windows Server licenses with valid software assurance, you have the ability to step up from your Standard Edition to the Data Center Edition, and there's a 20% discount to do that up until the end of March. And obviously the benefit of that is moving from the 2 virtual instances to the unlimited virtual instances. So please speak to your Bytes account manager if you want to have any more information or pricing on that promotion. We've touched on Windows Server, as in we've gone through the Windows Server, from a technical perspective, from a licensing perspective. We also mentioned that System Center is the key management tools that sit on that server environment. About March, April this year, Microsoft released the new System Center 2012 suite. So I'm just going to again just touch on some of the key changes that happen with the release of that product set. Traditionally, if you were using System Center, this sort of diagram here actually shows you the licenses that you required. So you needed to buy a server license, you needed to manage or buy a license for all the servers that would be managed by System Center in your environment, and if you were managing the end clients as well, you required client management licenses. A key change with the release of System Center 2012 is that a server license is no longer required. For each server ML, Microsoft, in a similar way to Windows Server, have actually reduced the flavors available. So mirroring the model, actually, they have a Data Center Edition and a Standard Edition. From a technology perspective, Craig has run through some of the products or the components that are available within the actual suite. So from a functionality perspective, both ML editions have the same technology within them. In a very similar way to Windows Server, the difference between the 2 editions is actually the virtualization piece. So again, in a similar way to Windows Server, if you're looking at a low virtual instance of a minimum of 2 virtuals per server, then with System Center Standard Edition would be more suitable for you from a cost perspective. but within the data center environment, and if you're looking for unlimited virtualizations, virtual editions, then the data center edition would be the more suitable option for the scalability perspective. On the client end, Microsoft have released 3 specific flavors of how to license the endpoints, and you can purchase something called the Configuration Management Client. From a security perspective, the endpoint protection subscription, and then there's the client management suite for all the other products that you are listed there on the right hand side. So you have the ability from a client perspective to buy 3 separate license types, or if you already have something called the Core Cal suite, or in fact the Advanced Edition, the Enterprise Client Suite, you actually have these clients already included in the investment you've made with Microsoft. From a Core Cal and an Enterprise Cal perspective, I haven't included information within the webinar, but if you have any questions about what these offerings are, then please, if you could just put something in the Q&A and we can get back to you on that. Okay, so for customers that have actually invested in software assurance within or on their existing System Center investment, in a similar way to Windows Server, there is a conversion. So on the left-hand side you can see a table there. I'm not going to read it out, but for every license flavor that you have purchased with software assurance, you have the ability to convert those to some of the new license flavors. And at the end of your software assurance period, so say for example if you have an enterprise agreement and that's due to expire, at the end of that agreement you need to do a self-inventory, so basically I understand what your conversion ratio is, what you're actually entitled to, and then look at if there's any shortfalls or what you need to be renewing potentially into new agreements, and that's obviously something that your Bytes account manager can help you with. Okay, so just to wrap up on the licensing perspective, we've talked about Windows Server, and a natural fit then is to look at System Center as the management tools that sit on the actual server platform. Microsoft a couple of years ago introduced a complete licensing flavor or enrollment specifically for System Center and Windows, and this is really for or where we're seeing popularity is for the data center piece. So if you are really looking to invest with Windows Server or System Center as your platform of choice in your business environment, and you're looking at really a more cost-effective way of wrapping up the licenses, then you should be having a conversation about the enrollment for core infrastructure. It starts with a minimum of 25 licenses, so we are looking for about 50 procs to start you on the agreement. But as I said, and from investment perspective, it is the most cost-effective way, and there are ways that you can pull in existing investments. If you already have software assurance on things like Windows, we can look to pull your existing investment into this enrollment type. Okay, so, well, thank you for your time today. I think we are 50 minutes in, so I think we're pretty much bang on there. We just wanted to really sort of give you a bit of a summary really of what we'd like you to take away from today. Craig alluded to an ROI tool that can help and can be a basis for business decisions for yourselves. So it literally takes 2 minutes of your time. The data that you put in doesn't get sent to anybody. It's for you to do in your leisure, but please go away, plug in some numbers, and then some of the output that you saw that Craig showed you around the ROI of Windows v VMware, you can see for yourself, and it can map to your environment. So hopefully that's a useful tool, and it could be a start for a discussion internally. What we'd also like you to do as a follow-up, and if you can engage with your Bytes account manager, as Craig's alluded to, Visual are available to do their ADS sessions. I mean, we have in 50 minutes literally flown through a huge technology and licensing piece that can take days, weeks, etc. to go through. So, you know, a full day would be of great value. We can use the planning days that are available under enterprise agreements for these sessions. If you are at a point where you're even reviewing licensing options for the data center, again, your Bytes account team can help look at cost modeling. And also finally, we've alluded to funding that Microsoft has available at the moment. So subject to Visual really qualifying what you're doing around the data center and looking to sort of kick off with the ADS session, they are then could be at a position when they've qualified exactly what you're trying to do, apply for funding. So if you are interested in consultancy money from Microsoft, that's something we can look into for you. So that's it from myself and Craig. We are going to start to have a look through the questions that have been submitted. If you have any further questions, feel free the next couple of minutes to start sort of clicking away. I'm just going to pause you for a second just so that we get the speakers, myself and Craig, can get a chance to have a quick read through what's coming through. So just bear with us and then we can start to collate the answers for you. We thank you.
Hi guys, just picking up on some of the questions here. One that was asked a little bit earlier on by Stuart Johnson that was covered in the slides, but just to restate it, what are the maximum number of VMs per host? As Zena alluded to, the business case ROI tool that will give you all the details that you require, so please click into that website. But the number of active VMs per host for Server 2012 is 1,024. For a cluster, there is a maximum of 8,000 VMs. So lots and lots of scalability there. I think VMware currently do around 3,000 per cluster.
Hi, we've had another question come through regarding whether there is any information available for SPLA, the Microsoft Service Provider Licensing Agreement. We're going to take that one offline. SPLA is a fairly, I can't say unique, but it is a licensing program in its own right. We have a SPLA business manager at Bytes, so what I'll do to the person who put that question through, I will get our SPLA business manager to contact you directly to talk through any nuances around SPLA licensing. Hi, and another question that's come through asking, under the Data Center Edition, do you still have to purchase Windows licenses for the VMs? And on that one, the answer is no, you don't have to purchase any additional licenses for the VMs. The Data Center Edition, in essence, covers you for unlimited virtual instances. Okay, I think, just looking through, we're getting some thanks coming through, etc. That is all. Oh, I can see one more question now. It's regarding licensing options within our Bytes portal. I will double check that internally. We have some information on the Windows licensing options within the internet. I'll just double check that they are on the Bytes portal as well, and we'll come back to you on that one.
Hi guys, Craig here again. Question coming from the field. Have we had any large-scale Hyper-V deployments on 2012, and how does the performance cope against VMware? So Visual are the only partner in the UK that were aligned to the RDP program, the Rapid Deployment Program, and on that program we took two customers, early adopter customers, Paul Smith and McLaren, as in the very fast cars, through on the RDP program. We deployed large-scale clusters with both customers, both for test and indeed for production now. And McLaren, for example, had a 16-node cluster running hundreds of virtual machines, and the performance was exceptional. I can only say exceptional at this point because there is no public case study at this point signed off with McLaren. However, the performance was so significant that they have decided to move, I guess, away from their traditional supplier, let's say, and embrace Hyper-V across their entire estate. So very happy to talk to individuals around performance improvements around Hyper-V. Scalability seems to be the massive win for Hyper-V on the server environment. So very happy to look at each and everybody's specific environment. But yes, absolutely massive performance improvements.
Great. I think we've gone through all the questions that have come through. Thank you ever so much for your time. You should have an online questionnaire coming through to you. If you can spend a couple of minutes just filling that out and give us some valuable feedback, that would be great. And the webinar will be made available in the near future, and you can